Welcome to my channel. This is an indication of some of the things that I cover on a regular basis in my videos. If you haven't already subscribed, please feel free to do so, and don't forget to click the little bell so that you'll get notified of future videos. Please feel free to share my videos on your social media, and I hope you enjoy the video which follows. Well, hello everyone. Angel and I are out to the cabin. We're going to camp overnight, do the usual, some cooking and whatever. I've had numerous requests from you, subscribers, wanting a cabin video. And I think I've given just about the same response to everybody. I prefer to come out here when it is cold enough that I can enjoy the heat from the wood stove. And it hasn't been that cold yet this year. And it still isn't. My problem being that I insulated the cabin when I built it, and I really wish I hadn't done that. I think if it wasn't insulated, I would be able to use the wood stove much better than I do now. It gets overheated in here very quickly unless it's really cold outside, and I end up opening windows and whatever. But it's only -1 outside right now, and it's supposed to go down to like -3 or 4 overnight tonight. Talking in degrees Celsius, of course, which is not at all cold. I think the coldest so far this fall has been -9 degrees. We've had 2, 3, maybe at least 3, I guess, small snowstorms and a few centimeters, and they were followed by warm weather and heavy rain. We have had so much rain this late fall here. So once again now the ground is completely bare, and in the forecast it does say that we could get a few centimeters of snow overnight tonight, which also could change to rain here. So come morning we'll know for sure, I guess, if we have anything white to show you on the ground. But just letting you know in advance, there isn't any big storm expected, no high winds and no snow or anything like that, so it should be quite a peaceful night in the cabin if I can keep it cool enough. Well, I'm going to start the cooking process, and what's most important, of course, I'm going to make dessert first, so that's the next item on the agenda here. Well, I recently received an early Christmas gift from one of my subscribers, Richard Berube in Montreal, and I hope I did not butcher your name, Richard. I'm very good at that. I can butcher names very easily. I really appreciate the gift. It is a vintage cooking book of Scottish recipes, as you can see. Printed, I think, in 1940 something or other here. (1946) was the first publishing, and this particular edition is 1967. I think all they did was just keep reprinting it. It's full of lots of little recipes that I would very much like to try, and I'm going to be doing a dessert out of it, a pudding. Definitely 1946 was before the new decimal currency came into effect in the United Kingdom. This has got a price tag on it of 9 shillings and 6pence, and what that might be in today's money, I have no idea. I'm going to make, as I said, a pudding, and it's called Glister's pudding, and I meant to do some research and find out what a glister might be. I don't know, but Glister's pudding. I'm basically going to follow the entire recipe. The only thing I can think of, well, no, it says lemon juice. I'm using orange juice, and I'm adding a few raisins. Other than that, it's the exact same recipe of a steamed pudding. So let's get that part of the show on the road here. Well, as I said, I added a few raisins. I like raisins. I thought they might go well in this. This is 4 ounces of all-purpose flour and 4 ounces of sugar, which I weighed and mixed together before I left the house. To that you add 4 ounces of butter. I'm using salted butter, 4 ounces of salted butter. One stick, in other words, if you have your butter in sticks. Now I will try to cream this together and not make it too lumpy, and also not to get it all over the table. Butter was soft, but was the butter soft enough, I guess? Hands were made before spoons. I guess that will have to do. Now I'm going to add the eggs one at a time. 2 large eggs. Ah, 2 large eggs without the shell would be preferable. That's getting there. Now, we'll add the marmalade and the orange juice and the baking soda. A teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda, which we just call baking soda here, dissolved in a little bit of water. 2 tablespoons of marmalade. I'm using my favorite, Schmucker's orange marmalade. And that tastes good. Now, and 2 tablespoons, it says, of lemon juice. I'm using orange juice. That's probably about 2 tablespoons. My baking soda wasn't dissolving very well, but I guess I got it. Now, just mix all this up. It also says you could add a teaspoon or a half teaspoon or something of ginger. I brought the ginger out, but I think I've decided not to do that. I want the predominant flavor to be orange. Fairly well combined. Do a bit of cleanup and I'll be right back. A pudding basin, a proper English pudding basin is nice, which is what this happens to be. I know that because I just imported it from the UK. Any bowl that has a lip around it like this is easier to use to steam a pudding. Doesn't necessarily have to be done that way. But you'll see when I put the tea towel on it, if you tie a string down under that lip, it's less apt to come off. And that's a 1 liter pudding basin. Use my fingers once again and grease it with some butter. That just makes it so hopefully when the pudding is done you can turn it out put all the batter in the basin. Is that done? Now I just took, before I left home, a piece of parchment paper. I turned the bowl upside down and traced around it with a knife. It's not accurately cut out, doesn't really matter. And I'm going to butter one surface of that. And the reason for this, well, the butter is again so it won't stick too badly to the pudding, but the reason for the piece of parchment paper is so when the pudding rises, it won't adhere to the tea towel that's going to be on top. At least that's the theory. Let's see if I can get a tea towel over it. Just any clean tea towel. Mine happens to be white, or it was white when I started anyway. Tie a string under that lip on the pudding basin, as tight as you can tie it. Now, if this is done properly, we'll soon find out if it was, you should be able to bring the four corners of the tea towel up and tie them over the top of the pudding basin. And if you use those as a handle, pick the pudding up, put it in the steamer and take it back out again. In theory. I have a large stock pot on the wood stove. It hasn't boiled yet, but I'm going to put this in now anyway. And it says it should steam for 2 hours. Well, at least 2 hours. It doesn't really make any difference if you steam one of these things longer. The longer the better, I think. As I said, the water's only been on there a little while. It isn't boiling, but I do see steam rising out of it already. So your pudding basin just goes down in the bottom. There's only maybe 2-3 inches of water down in there. Tea towel's going to get wet, I'm sure, from the steam and whatever. 2 hours later, at least 2 hours later, it will be ready. Well, I'm not ready to start cooking dinner yet, but dinner is going to be a one-pot fish dinner. We call it a corn pollock dinner. Pollock being a fish, if you're not familiar with it. I'll show you the fish later on. And it's corned because the same reason you call corned beef corned. The pollock that I'm using came out of the freezer last evening, and I put some salt over it, and it's been thawing up that way. It isn't terribly salt, but it does take in some of the salt, so you don't use any additional salt with the vegetables, that's for sure, when you're cooking it. But it's a very old favored food here in Atlantic Canada. What you're looking at there is some of my turnips, one of the vegetables that's going to be for dinner this evening. But I wanted to show you, this is still frozen. I took it out of the freezer. But that's, you might have seen the video when I did this, that's vacuum packed. As you can see, there's no air or anything in it. And that's so it will stay better in the freezer. What I really want to show you now is this thing. How well that is showing up. That was the same thing. That was vacuum packed, and that is 3 small turnips that I didn't freeze them. I vacuum packed it and just left them in my basement. I was wondering if that would be a good way to store the turnips so that you wouldn't have to freeze them. People wax them. The whole idea is to keep moisture that's in the turnip from coming out, because in very short order it will start to wrinkle up and get soft. I'm about to open this thing. I don't know if they have become soft or not. They don't look like they've wrinkled or anything, but obviously they're giving off a gas, and they have blown that vacuum package up looking like a pillow. Let's see what is in there. Woo! And the air that come out is definitely turnip air. Well, no, they're just as firm as when I put them in there. So, I think I will probably peel those, slice them up, and cook them along with the other turnip. I'm cooking a lot of turnip. Also, you'll see in a bit, a lot of potato. I won't eat, well, a small fraction of it's what I'll eat for dinner. I like to have leftovers with this meal because then I can make fish cakes tomorrow and have fish cakes for dinner tomorrow. And if I have a number of fish cakes, I'll freeze them and have them later on. So I'll be peeling this crazy thing here that turned into a pillow. Well, the pudding has been in for about an hour, and I can start to smell it cooking. See that cloud of steam that come out or not, but it is bubbling away. Not a rapid boil, but a simmer, so that's good. Another hour or so, and we'll see if it's ready. Just come out to go back to the house to bring some more of my required supplies out for the night. Looking back at the cabin there, you can tell that it's very calm. The smoke from the stove is rising basically straight up in the air. I do see now a few little flakes of snow spitting out of the air, but nothing that's going to show up on a video. It's just an occasional little snowflake here. Well, you can hear the roar in the background. That is the Coleman stove going. I have my potatoes and turnip on, just started. This is the fish that I'm talking about. It's pollock. I don't know if you'd call it a white fish or not. It's more dense, solid than haddock is, and has some color to it. Around here, the preferred fish for salting and drying would be pollock. Normally, in other places, you would see salt-dried codfish, bacalhau if you're somewhere in Europe. It's called bacalhau, in Portugal and Spain both, I think. But here the fish of preference is pollock. And you can see quite a bit of salt there in that tray. I did put some salt on it last night when it was frozen, and a certain amount of it has sunk in, but it won't be all that salty. The large stock pot with the potatoes and the turnip in hasn't got any salt in it, so the salt that will come out of the fish will be salt for the vegetables. As I said, it's all cooked in one pot. If the light looks a little strange, I'm once again having some kind of an issue with my solar lights. I forgot and left them on, and when I come back they were flashing. Usually that means a low voltage, I guess. And sometimes if I turn them off for a while, I don't know, I only use one. There's two. If I only use one of them, it'll work better. But whatever, I have a battery-powered lantern here, and I can see to get around. I still have my Coleman gas lantern, but I don't like using the thing. It makes more noise than that stove behind me is making. So I'll bring you back when dinner is closer to being ready. And the pudding is still on the stove, steaming away. It smells really good. Well, the fish and the potatoes and the turnip, I would say, are pretty well cooked. I'm going to add the fish and then turn the flame way down. I don't want a high boil for the fish, but dinner will be ready shortly. And I have dared to use the solar light, and so far it isn't blinking on and off at me. Well, the tea towel thing worked as far as getting the pudding basin out of the steaming hot container. That's darker looking than I thought it would be. That's a surprise. Now let's see if I can get it out of the pudding basin. I guess it's not that hot. I can bear to pick it up, I think. Bear to pick it up. It's not coming out. Well, that took some gentle persuasion with a knife, but finally it did drop. And there it is out of the bowl. I don't know. I'm just surprised at how dark it is. I don't think those few raisins would have made it that dark. And it doesn't have anything in it like molasses or anything like that. However, proof of the pudding will be in the eating thereof. I'll put the basin back over it to keep it at least relatively warm until I've had my dinner, and then we'll give it a try. Dinner, such as it is served. It is traditionally eaten with green tomato chow chow, which is what that is. A vintage one, actually, I guess. I made that in 2018, last year. I'm also having it with some of my mustard pickles, which several English subscribers sent me recipes for piccalilli, and it's pretty similar, really. I'll try a piece of the fish here. Yeah, you can taste the salt. It's a little salty, but it's not that bad. And the vegetables, I'm sure, have been seasoned with the salt. I added a little ground pepper, but I didn't add any additional salt to my vegetables. Also, traditionally eaten with pork scraps. Fatback salt pork, rendered out, fried, or baked in the oven till all the fat comes out of it, and including little pieces of rind and fat are put on top of it. I used to do that and really enjoyed it. There goes my lights again. I'll be eating by lantern, I guess. I no longer eat meat. I eat fish, as you can see, but I don't eat the meat anymore. I'm sure most people here still have it with pork scraps, and I must admit, when I ate it, it was very good. I'm a vegetarian that eats fish. There's a great big long word for that. Well, I'm going to enjoy my dinner, and I'll bring you back when it's time to try the pudding. Well, dinner was very good. It's now about 6:45, I guess, so it's really dark outside. I just looked out, and there is some snow coming down. Not a great deal. I mean, there's nothing much on the ground or anything. But evidently, out to sea from here, between here and wherever it is the lighthouse sends its sensor beam, there is more snow. It has turned on the foghorn. Foghorns work in snow. Did you know that? As well as fog, whenever there's reduced visibility. And it's an automatic thing. I really don't understand how it works. I was told it's something to do with a laser. The laser shoots off into the dark somewhere and is supposedly going to be reflected back off of something. And when it doesn't come back in the time frame that the computerized gizmo thinks it should have come back in, then it turns on the foghorn. And that's several, maybe at least 5, maybe 6 kilometers from where I am. But you can hear it almost anywhere on the island, even though it's pointed, it's north of here, and it is pointed off into the ocean in a northerly direction, so it's not, the sound isn't pointed this way, but I still hear it. I put the pudding basin on the floor. You hear something that sounds like a bell ringing? It's one of Angel's tags. She's cleaning the basin for me. Well, this is much darker than I thought. I'm surprised at the color. It smells good. Oh yeah. It tastes very good too. I can taste the orange. The marmalade and the orange juice worked. It has some raisins in it. I'm just trying to think of why it turned just the color it turned. I guess I would have thought to get that color you'd had to have had molasses or brown sugar or chocolate even in it to get this shade, but I think I know. Ding 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 on the floor. I think I know the reason why my solar lights aren't working very well. I think I need to replace the battery. It's out here year round. I never disconnect it. And I'm hardly ever in here in the summertime, so it just continues charging and charging and charging, and that's not good for any battery. And it's now several years old, like 5-6 years old or something. So I think the next time I have an opportunity, I'll buy a new battery for it and see if that doesn't improve the situation. But more romantic, we're eating by this battery-operated lantern, which is an amazing thing. It takes an incredible amount of batteries. The larger ones, D-cell or whatever. I think there's 8 in it. But it's been several years ago. My brother and sister-in-law gave it to me as a Christmas gift, and it's still on the original set of batteries that I put in it. It gives a nice light, and you can, that's the brightest light. You just keep pressing the button and it steps down 2 more times before it shuts off. So if you wanted a dimmer light or whatever. But I use it whenever we have power outages. Angel and I were out. We had to go over and close up the chicken coops for the night. That was before dark. The chickens can still come out in their yard. Their little door is open in both coops. But I like to close them up at night. I don't know if there would still be weasels around or if they would have hibernated, but I don't want to find out the hard way. So I close them up every night. And once there's a lot of snow in their yard, they won't come out anyway. But so far they've still been able to out using their yard. So I will finish dessert here and then bring you back in a little bit, and I don't know, maybe we'll talk about books or something. Carrying on with the very weird lighting. Angel and I are on the sofa. I'm going to do some reading. The storm is not amounting to anything at all, at least not yet, and like I said before, it's not supposed to. I'm going to read. I now read on my iPhone. My iPad died that I was reading on. I still have another reader. I can't think of what it's called now, but when the iPad died, I thought, well, I probably won't like it on the iPhone, but I tried it, and I do like it. And the book's with me no matter where I go, so if I have a few minutes somewhere in a restaurant or a waiting room somewhere, I can read for a bit. You certainly turn the page more frequently, of course, because the pages for an iPhone have to be a lot smaller or you'd never be able to read them. Currently, I'm reading an author that I have never read before, one of these things that popped up for a very reasonable price, and I bought a box set, but it's a digital box set called the Isle of Man Ghostly Cozy Collection. And the one that I am reading is called Arrivals and Arrests. And the author is Diana Zarissa, I think. I don't know how you pronounce it, but I'll spell it. Xarissa. The first name is Diana. I like her writing style. It's a whodunit type thing, and I'm enjoying that part of it. A little bit strange, though, when it says the Ghostly Cozy Collection. She inherits her aunt's apartment in the Isle of Man. She was born in the Isle of Man but lived in the U.S. And worked at a university. She's a historian. She returns and takes possession of the apartment. I won't destroy the story if you're planning to read the book, but there are a couple of murders already, of course. But the thing that I can't say is I'm getting used to too quickly. The aunt comes back as a ghost every day at some point, and she has conversations with her aunt, and her aunt is encouraging her to solve the crimes, even though there's the police are involved and that sort of thing. You never know quite when her aunt's going to pop up, and she's the only one that can see her aunt, evidently, other than her cat. Her cat can see her, I guess. So I'm finding that a bit of a stretch to get a hold of, but the rest of it is well written, so I'm going to at least stick with the first one. Whether or not I'll go on and read the other two in this collection, I don't know, but it's interesting. Other books that I want to talk about, Margaret Atwood. Not that Margaret Atwood needs any introduction to anybody, I don't think. She just won the Booker Prize in shared the Booker Prize with a British author. Anyway, 16 years ago, she wrote The Handmaid's Tale, and that's been made into a movie. I haven't seen the movie. And then just recently, she published the sequel to The Handmaid's Tale. And of course, I'm lost. I can't come up with the title. The Testament, okay, which carries on from where The Handmaid's Tale left off. And I had never read The Handmaid's Tale, so I bought both books digital. I read the Handmaid's Tale first, and then I read the Testament. I enjoyed them. I've never read anything by Margaret Atwood before. I think years ago I tried one and was into it several hundred pages, and I said, no, I really not getting anything out of this, so I never picked up another one. But the interesting thing about the Testament is, in the very end of it, it comes to Campobello. So we got a lot of free publicity for Margaret Atwood. So if you're interested in reading the Testament, that would be one incentive anyway. You can read to find out how it all ends up at Campobello at the very end. So right now I'm going to shut this down, I guess, and do some reading. As I said, the snow isn't amounting to much. The foghorn is going, but it's just a little bit of fine snow coming out of the air. Maybe we'll have enough come morning to at least see snow on the ground. Trying to think of some way that I could show you that the snow is accumulating a little bit. I took the lantern out, and as you can see, I set it out there in the snow. At least at this point, the ground is white. If it doesn't change to rain overnight, we'll have at least white ground in the morning. Oh, there's only a centimeter or two down there. It's nothing much, but it has turned the ground white, and it's still coming down at the same rate, which isn't too terribly fast, but we're going to have a white cover on the ground in the morning anyway. Well, good morning, everybody. We had, as I thought, just enough snow that the ground is white again anyway. You can see through the trees over there, you can see snow on the roof of my house. I guess you can probably see all those nice red rose hips to the right, too, on that crazy rose bush of mine. The birds will be tackling that any time now. They usually wait until it freezes a number of times, and I don't know, maybe they just run out of other food sources, but eventually, before spring, there isn't a rose hip left. Well, I have breakfast cooking anyway. Oatmeal and coffee are both on, so we'll have our breakfast here in a few minutes. Starting to smell very good. The coffee is perking away and the water is boiling in the double boiler. I do my oatmeal in a double boiler. I guess I practically always have. You don't have to keep watching it so closely to see whether it's going to stick to the bottom or not. Breakfast will be on the table, hopefully, in just a few minutes. Breakfast is served. I always put a little butter on top of my oatmeal. Does everybody else do that? That's what my mother did when I was a child, so I carry on. I often cook it along with some dried fruit. Today it's dates. Lately I've been using prunes. I often use raisins, but I like the little extra dried fruit in it. And I gotta say, it's one of my favorite winter breakfasts is to have oatmeal. When I was a child, just in, well, very early grades of primary school, anyway, I don't remember exactly how old I was, I developed hives and couldn't seem to find out what the problem was. My mother took me to my family doctor, and the first thing he asked is there something that he eats all the time, like every day? And Mom said yes, he won't go to school without his oatmeal. So evidently it was the oatmeal. We cut down on the oatmeal and the hives went away. Well, Angel and I will be going back to the house shortly. It Well, it's still quite overcast, but there seems to be some areas where the blue sky is breaking through. So the forecast says it's supposed to be at least partially sunny by this afternoon. And it's only -2 degrees, so it's really not... it wasn't that much of a storm. I just had a text from my sister. She lives in Ontario, and she got a lot of snow last night. She lives in snow country in Ontario, on Georgian Bay. And they get a lot of snow all winter long, but they really got dumped on last night. Well, before I close this down, I'll do another little clip just showing you the outside of the cabin with the tiny little bit of snow around it. I have a crow that wants to talk to me this morning. If you can see possibly just a tiny bit of smoke still coming out of the stove, of the chimney rather, and obviously a little bit of snow on the roof, so we did get some snow, but not very much. Actually, the long-range winter weather forecast, which I always laugh at because it's very rarely even close to what we get, it said that we will have a milder winter here in this area and less snow. Well, it isn't even officially winter yet, but I always think that's foolishness anyway. This idea that winter begins on the 21st of December is because of the solstice. It does not begin there here. We've had very cold weather since November, so not that I would call it autumn or fall weather. It's been very wintry, even though we haven't had a lot of snow. Well, that is the final look back at the cabin. Thank you very much for watching.